He's back, ladies and gentlemen, Reynolds, the guy who doesn't believe that Australia exists. And I thought he'd gone away for a while. Maybe he went off to get an education, but I see that his education levels still sit on par with a small Ugandan child.
Mr. Margarine. He has had such a long career, filled with his fair share of successes, and also his fair share of terrible videos. He has displayed a lot of mental midget tendencies, but it's unfortunate. I've never had much time for the man. I've never been best buds with him. We've had a back and forth. We've said some bad things to each other. Things have gotten a little bit heated at times. But it's always a sad day when this happens. It's always a sad day when a man like Mr. Margarine makes a video about a man like Reynolds. It's always a sad day because we all know what's coming next. And he may talk tough, he may have a lot of choice words, he may seem quite worked up in his video. But we can't blame him. We can't blame him, folks. If you knew your funeral was coming up, you might have some parting words as well. It's okay, Mr. Margarine. I may not be the one to hold you and embrace you as your career dies by the end of this video, but I'm sure someone will. Someone who appreciates your stinky dick. I'm sure someone out there has a kink for that. I would say I'm sorry to say this, Mr. Margarine, but you have this coming. You've had this coming for a long time. And by the end of this video, you will be so humiliated, so emasculated, that you will never again show your face on the internet. Mr. Margarine, what are you doing? That's not margarine. That's buttermilk spread. Stupid margarine man. Ridiculous. Yes, folks, it's that time again. A time for another video about Mr. Margarine, because you know what? He posted another video about me. Another video about good old me, about good old Reynolds. And since then, thank you, Mr. Margarine, because you know what? I've been getting t-shirt sales. I don't know why your people are buying my t-shirts, especially from an old t-shirt store that I forgot even existed. But thanks anyway, doofus. I also really appreciate your great fan base sending me great encouraging comments like these. I just noticed Rag the Virgin looks just like Putin with the sort of beard that child murdering a-hole would grow. Do you think the mushroom shirt is a cry for help to be rescued from living in the dark and eating shit? That man's eyes look psychopathic. One eye is looking at you, the other is looking for you. The wheel may be spinning, but the hamster is definitely dead. Reynolds seems like he's a lady trapped in a gay man's obese body. What kind of drugs is this mutant been smoking? And my personal favourite, anyone can take a stingray barb through the chest? I would pay to see Rag come to Australia and let some icehead shank him with a stingray's barb just to see how well he takes it. Rag thinks he's a tough shit, but he chickened out on a fight against the modern legend, the Buttsmarn. We all know Rag changed his name to it to sound more hardcore and like a Viking, when his real name was probably something like Mervyn. I'll let you in on a little secret here, kid. If you actually knew anything about the history between me and Mr. Margarine, you would know that he is the one who backed out. I was the one who challenged him. I was the one who put out the challenge to a fight to him, and he is the one who was a little bitch and said no. He's the one who backed out because he is a bitch. Good old Reynolds was happy to fight Mr. Margarine. Mr. Margarine is the one who was scared of me. And here's a bonus comment. Not sure if he's Scottish, but if he is, ask him to say purple burglar alarm. It'll be good, I promise. Purple burglar alarm. You cannot defeat me. I am a master of linguistics.
But why commit 6 years of your life to such a ridiculous tale that, in all honesty, doesn't really get many views on your channel?
Mr. Margarine, Mr. Margarine, Mr. Margarine. We have had this conversation on your podcast. Why are you asking me questions I've already answered? I'm getting fed up answering these questions. There are 2 reasons why I continue to make Australia videos. First reason is it's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy it almost as much as walking over to the corner, fixing up my corner, replacing my corner. When I go down to the corner store and I buy new corners, or maybe they're all out of corners and I go round to another corner store and I say, hey, do you have any corners I can buy? Because my old corners really need replaced. And the second reason why I continue to make Australia videos is because I want to bring the truth to the people. No matter how many people hear my truth, I am bringing the truth. Truth is a wonderful thing, Mr. Margarine. You should try it sometime. You should try a little taste of it. It is delicious. Maybe you'd actually get a taste for it and stop making your terrible videos filled with lies. Maybe you'd actually start telling the truth for once. It's okay, Mr. Margarine. I understand that you're scared of the dark. I understand that you're a wimp. I understand that you're even more of a wimp than a certain Irwin. It's okay, Mr. Margarine. You don't need to be ashamed. I see you for who you are, and I accept you for it. But yeah, some of these spiders are actually bigger than birds.
That is true.
ragreynolds 1, Isaac Butterfield 0. I know that people get really annoyed when I say bad things about Steve Irwin, so I'm going to do that again right now.
Don't do it. Don't you fucking do it. Don't do it.
Steve Irwin is a bitch. Steve Irwin is a bitch. Bitch. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin is a bitch. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin is a bitch. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin is a bitch. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin is a bitch, but not as much of a bitch as you, Isaac Margarine Butterfield boy.
You might be walking around your hometown in Scotland and you see a dude walking around with a turban and you don't understand that that man with the turban is fucking brought up in Western Sydney and he's going to walk over to you and say, this is for Steve Irwin, you fucking And that's the beautiful thing about multicultural nations.
I see your game, Mr. Margarine. I see your game. You're too much of a bitch to fight me yourself. So, instead you're going to encourage your stupid fans, your turban-wearing fans, your fans all over, to come and fight me on your behalf. Because you're too much of a bitch to do it yourself. That's great. You know, I'm actually going to tell you a story now. It's story time with Rag Reynolds. Being the sophisticated gentleman that I am, I often go to wine bars. I enjoy drinking wine in wine bars. But a couple of weeks ago, on my birthday, I decided to, instead, I was going to go try out a younger place, try out a pleb place. I was going to go try somewhere else just for a change to see what it was like. So I went to Sportsters. So Sportsters is basically like this chain bar place, but it's kind of like a club. I don't know, it was weird. It had lots of people in it. It was like 3 a.m, barely any space at all. I mean, I'm the only guy in there wearing a suit. Everyone else is poorly dressed. So much so that I think 4 different people approached me and said, wow, really good suit, really like your suit, and all bought me drinks. It's just unfortunate that the alcohol in these places is kind of terrible. Anyway, I was in there for maybe 5 minutes, and I was standing up at the bar. I'm up at the bar, and this guy, this bald guy is just standing, and he's staring at me. Just staring at me really strangely. And I'm like, okay, why is this weirdo staring at me? And he approaches me, he comes up and he goes, hey, do I know you? Like shouting because it's very loud. He's like, do I know you? And I'm like, I don't know, do you know me? Do you? And he says, the internet. And I'm like, well, maybe. And then he said to me, he said something really funny. He said, Isaac Butterfield, Australia doesn't exist. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And this guy was like, he was so happy. He was so happy to meet Rag Reynolds. And he tried to give me a hug, and he got his phone out, and he started taking selfies. He told me he's 31 years old. I didn't know you had fans that old, Isaac. I thought your fans were all like 15. So, congrats on having one fan over the age of 15. And this guy, he's taking selfies with me, he buys me a drink. His wife comes over looking for him like 10 minutes later. What are you over here? He's like, oh my god, look who this is. And she's like, fuck off, you've abandoned me for this guy. That's the effect Rag Reynolds has on people, obviously. They abandon their wives to hang around with them. People abandon their wives, their loved ones, drop their children down volcanoes just so they can hang around Rag Reynolds. And to be honest, I can't blame them. I'm just that great of a guy. Point is, Mr. Margarine, your plan is failing because one of your fans noticed me. And they didn't try to fight me. Instead, they bought me alcohol and took selfies. So you're going to need to up your rhetoric if you have any chance of getting someone to do your dirty work for you, because it doesn't seem like it's going to happen at this point.
He's a talented dude. We spoke to this guy on the podcast. He's a funny guy. If he just fucking stuck to his own craft, or even the behooved thing, like that's sort of a funny idea. Stick to making those documentaries or funny videos, that type of shit, and you might actually get an audience, big dick.
You know something, Mr. Margarine? You're a very perplexing individual. Very, very perplexing. You are the one, if I remember correctly, when I was on your podcast, I specifically remember you making the point of telling me that I should continue to make Australia videos. I remember you specifically telling me that I should be more offensive to Australians. In fact, you were even trying to give me material. You and your friend Greenie, or whatever his name was, you're sitting there like, you should talk about this. That'll really upset people. You should talk about that. I think you should keep doing this. And yet now, you're going to come onto your video on this channel, and you're going to try and tell everyone, try and tell your fans that you don't understand why I make these videos. Try and tell your fans that you think I should stop making these videos. Fact of the matter is, Mr. Margarine, we all know that you dislike Australia just as much as the next Australian denier.
I think you should get back on the Australia train. I think you should be more offensive to Australians, and I think you should continue our rivalry.
You are a fool, Mr. Margarine. You are a stinky dick fool. Take that pipe out of your mouth when I'm speaking to you, old man. Take that pipe out. You had enough? This is what it's come to, huh, Mr. Margarine? I have to fight you like this because you're too scared of Rag Reynolds? You're too scared of me to fight me for real? So I have to do this instead? What are you going to do, give me a paper cut? No. You're the one who's cut, Mr. Margarine. You're cut. You're cut. That's what would happen to you, Mr. Margarine. And you know it, and your fans know it. This is the end of you. It is all over now. You can now retire in shame after Rag Reynolds has exposed you yet again for the snivelling coward and liar that you are. Mr. Margarine, this video, take it as a eulogy. A eulogy to you and your career on the internet. Stick to doing your stupid stand-up shows and never show your face around these parts again, or else you will be humiliated even worse. You can ask short videos all about that, because I'm a man who lives up to my promises.